Now repeat. Okay, let's call this meeting to order and get on track here, people. First off, we got agenda in front of us. Is there any changes to the agenda? Before I do that, I will start with a land acknowledgement. In the spirit of respect, authenticity, and reconciliation, the town of Slave Lake honors and acknowledges that we are situated on the traditional land of the Sarge First Nation within Treaty 8 territory, home to Indigenous, Métis, and Inuit peoples who have occupied these lands since time immemorial. Sorry, the agenda is in front of us. Any changes? Councillor Ferguson?
Motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Start with CEO update.
Thank you very much. So before you should have a copy of the CIO update. I'll just kind of go over some of the highlights for the various departments. Under administration, a couple of the highlights, Voint Alert presentation was completed to both SLT and council. Plans are underway to move ahead with implementation, training and onboarding. We've also administration started an internal policy review, so initiated a direction to update and modify any of our current policies and see how they fit within our current strategic plan. So those are underway currently. In August, we're making efforts to begin our red tape reduction initiative. So essentially examining the various aspects of administration from department to department, looking for opportunities to reduce red tape or reduce unnecessarily steps or barriers to fulfilling any of our service or program delivery needs. And last update there is administration is also now looking at the possibility of substituting one of the vehicles identified replacement for this year with an electric vehicle, capitalizing on some additional provincial grant funding and being able to capitalize on the charging station that's also been approved and grant funded as well. So stay tuned for that. In terms of economic development in that department, not a lot of updates. We're still in the recruitment stage. We've now essentially expanded some of our recruitment strategies and advertising strategies. Any interviewing or pre-screening to date's been essentially ineffective. And as requested, we've began to share the local Heck Yeah campaign or Town of Slave Lake, Visit Town of Slave Lake campaign that was targeted for Edmonton locally here as well. Under human resources, health and safety, essentially program still continuing as it normally should be. No ongoing concerns in there. In terms of recruitment and retention, a number of positions were filled. Travel counselors, summer splash counselors, park operators, and summer fire student. Currently open at various stages. So we've just advertised, I think as of today, a new position, the administrative assistant position that was approved by council for this year's budget. Titled CAO and administrative assistant for the CAO and human resources. So that process just started today with a closing date, I think at the end of July. Yeah. Director of Community Services, we are shortlisted for interviews. So we've proceeded through the pre-screening and identified candidates for stage or level 1 interviews. So that's happening probably within the next 2 weeks. And then a variety of other vacancies that we're just working our way through, a lot that fall underneath. And I'll talk a little bit further about MRC and some of the challenges that we're having in there. In terms of finance, business license updates. So we saw 4 new business licenses issued in June. Taxes were due on June 30th. So Monday to Wednesday saw an increase in traffic in the front lobby for persons paying their taxes. Average 25 to 30 in-person visits for the week. Payroll continues cross-training within the department. Utility invoices were sent out by mail and email on July 6th. From an operations perspective, Public Works is finishing up on their gravel program, shaping up the gravel roads and starting dust control application. The Main Street line painting was finished. Just have a couple days to complete some of the crosswalks, finishing off the cold pour crack sealing. I don't know if that's actually spelled right. Anyway, beach cleanup scheduled for this Friday. So that's after the scheduling conflict that we had there a couple weeks ago. And we're going to be demoing out some new equipment here the following week. From a project perspective, so the Sawridge Creek water line replacement is substantially complete. Administration will be bringing back a report in regards to that. Yeah, and I'll just leave the most of the other updates there are in regards to each of the projects. And you also have Kush available should you have any other questions specifically to those. Planning and development have been working extensively with the operators of Big Fish Bay regarding the various projects on the go. They also conducted and issued a stop work order for an industrial property regarding illegal use. Been working with landowners regarding low pressure sanitary sewer project and other reports as per council. Fire department, their statistics are included there in the CAO report. In June, started the recruitment process for 3 open positions. Actually, and a lot of those interviews are happening this week here right now. From a community service perspective, recruitment still underway for their vacant peace officer position as well. So that is also in the pre-screening stages, soon to be into the interview stage here. Actually, I think, are you doing some of those this week too? Yeah. Calls for service has been up. I responded to 33 calls in 2 weeks and still dealing with homelessness related complaints. In terms of aquatics, their summer swim lessons are in full swing. They're running a condensed set of adult swim lessons starting on the 12th and meeting with the Northern Lakes College next week to discuss shutdown and finalize plans for our fall shutdown. In terms of facilities and parks, we've seen an increase in some of the vandalism in our parks. It's been upsetting to see. And we continue to work to find solutions to this and are working with bylaw as well as the RCMP. Continue to try and balance facilities, parks and trails while having people away on vacation. So that's always a challenge during this time of year. We've had several hosting tournament weekends at the Sinclair Ball Diamonds this season. And thanks to the Morad Group for working with us to ensure the fields are in great shape. We also had the Alberta Powerlifting Provincial Championship at MRC this past week and had a lot of great feedback as it relates to that facility. From an FCSS perspective, so they're planning for Anger Ed for the fall. So looking at hosting 2 men's and 1 women's group sort of sessions. 45 people participated in the June Family Fun Night. So big thank you to those volunteers and Slave Lake Dental for their sponsorship. Next call for SCSS grants will be coming in August, and Seniors Week was June 6th to 12th. They hosted a pancake breakfast and all events went well. Canada Day was moved inside based on weather. The event was fairly successful. Summer Splash has started out as well and started to plan for their fall and winter programming. Visitor Information Center continues to be busier and busier. They see visitors from all over Canada and the States and even some from overseas. Had lots of positive feedback from those traveling through. And they've also included a list of the different July events that fall underneath community services. Any questions? I'm here to answer.
Questions for CAO? Quite a bit of information in there. Councillor Hughes.
There we go. Sorry, I just have to look at my notes here. So the beach cleanup you said has been rescheduled for this coming Friday.
That's correct.
Okay, are you guys gonna do, like, is Jordan gonna go out and do a little bit of promotion on it? Or we're gonna kind of splash that around that it's been done and show it off a little bit? Just curious. on
We
that.
absolutely could. I don't know if we had any plans or if you were looped in on that. We don't, but
Jordan, would you like to go to the beach on Friday?
I would just love to see it, you know, shout it out that we got the equipment and it's kind of a celebration. And thanks to lots of efforts of people here. So I just was curious on that.
Perfect.
For my next question, you mentioned Recycle Center ongoing care. Can you elaborate? Are you just tidying up over there or what exactly is happening? If you know.
I don't recall mentioning that. Where was that under? Sorry.
The Public Works, just says Recycle Center ongoing care at the bottom. I was just curious if we were doing something different there.
No,
or-
I don't think so. I think that was just general cleanup. I don't think there
General
was
cleanup,
anything of
okay.
any
Okay.
significance.
I don't remember what my other one was now. I'm okay. Someone else can go.
Any other questions? Anybody else wants to play? Okay, we'll jump into the management task list on page 4 in our package. Any questions or anything you want to highlight, Jeff, at this point?
Nothing specific. We're going to, I think most of them are updated there. We're going to change a little bit of the format once Joanna's back, just for ease of reference and stuff. But most of these projects, I've touched base with. Most of the ongoing ones are still moving ahead as planned.
Okay, sounds good. Any questions from council? If not, motion to accept the management task list as presented. Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. So committee minutes. We'll start with intermunicipal. Intermunicipal did meet here a couple weeks ago. Our next meeting is scheduled for September. One of the big topics in there was obviously the discussions around the two agreements. So this would be the fire services agreement and the intermunicipal agreement. The message that we delivered to the MD was essentially we weren't looking for any substantial changes in either of those documents. The MD did highlight a couple areas that they wanted to discuss, but also needed a little bit more time to clarify some of the items that they had brought up. So we'll wait for that to happen. And the intention is that we briefly went over the fire services with that. We intend to do the same with intermunicipal and hopefully complete some of the fire services piece at our meeting in September. Industrial land was another big topic of discussion. Again, the necessity that essentially they have companies in industry that are interested in this region, but we have limited availability of industrial land within town limits. There are some in Mitsue. But definitely a willingness from both parties there to see something grow there. And so, you know, for those that aren't aware, this is something the town was talking about literally the same weekend as the fire in 2011. It was an area of concern. And so we're kind of back right where we started a number of years ago, over a decade ago, because things are busy, things are full, and we have a demand. So the goal is to identify something and see if we can unlock some land to see some development happening and increase industrial land base within the region. We did touch on the beach a little bit there and the beach cleaning equipment that was coming. So it was kind of a good news item that I don't think has got enough good news, and the fact that the MD had basically applied for a grant and got a piece of beach cleaning, a piece of equipment for free, and they're kind of hosting it. It's a great partnership between the town, the MD, and parks themselves there to operate in this equipment and basically elevate the level of service that we get for beach cleaning out there. So that was a good news item. And that was the majority of the meeting. Any questions? If not, we'll move into watershed.
Steve's not here.
Steve's not here. Chamber of Commerce.
We met today. We just wanted to give a thank you to all the volunteers and people from the town that helped with regards to the riverboat days this weekend. We had a lot of help from operations with regards to the highway and parking and site cleanup. And so that's a huge fundraiser for the organization and for our community. So I just wanted to give a shout out to the town staff for helping us along with that. It went really smoothly, so that was great to see. And there was a lot of visitors in town for that. Moving forward, we're looking forward to the all-in weekend, which I will leave Kim for tourism. And moving forward, we're going to work on our Small Business Week and Business Excellence Awards in October.
Okay, questions? As I see none. Alberta North Central Alliance, we've got a contractor that's doing some work behind the scenes right now to help us work through a project with we've got a $200,000 grant from the province of Alberta for the group to work together and work on some planning and strategic planning. And so the consultant's getting some feedback from all those involved. And I think our conversation with the town of Slave Lake is tomorrow afternoon. So not much happening there other than that. See no questions, housing.
That's me. We had a decrease in vacancies between May and June. So our wait list, I should say, we went from 47 on the wait list to 41. There are quite a few properties that are going to be ready in July and August. There was a new maintenance man that was hired that will hopefully speed up some of the transitions to get these units ready after move out. So there's probably, from this list I'm looking at right here, there's about 10 that should be ready to be allocated by the end of August, which should further help with the wait list. And other than that, report is that all things are quiet.
Any questions? Tri-Council Health,
Have not met.
Tourism Society.
Okay, so our regular board meetings have a break for the summer, but we are working behind the scenes on the All In Slave Lake weekend. So we are planning All In on August 26th to the 28th, the last weekend of August. This is a big group effort. It's a collaboration with multiple groups across the board. So we have the Slave Lake Chamber of Commerce, Stage North, the Rotary Club, the Arts Council. So this is quite a big collaboration. And everyone's kind of doing their own particular event or kind of sponsoring their own part of it, which is wonderful to see. So we have a full list, posters all over town. There's lots of information on social media. It gives you kind of the highlight reel of what day the parade is, what to expect, where everything is located, etc. So just encouraging people to visit our Facebook page, Slave Lake Region Tourism, or the Slave Lake Chamber of Commerce Facebook page as well. The Chamber is going to be releasing their vendor registrations for businesses that are interested in signing up to be a part of the block party. That information will be coming out this week. So next couple of weeks, we'll be taking all the registrations and kind of finalizing all the details for that. And on a different note for tourism, we are looking to fill some board seats as well. And we are also looking for volunteers to help with our events. So if people in the community are interested in volunteering or perhaps joining our board, we would love to encourage them to come out to a meeting in the fall when we start up our regular meetings again in September. And if anyone has any questions, you can always feel free to reach out to us on our Facebook page.
Questions? As I see none, library.
That's me as well, but nothing new to report.
Naming advisory.
Have not met.
Community Futures is Steve's not here. Community Education Committee.
Have not met.
Homelessness Coalition.
So we've had a few meetings. The biggest things that we're working on right now is a location for the MAT program for this winter. So if anybody has a location, a building, potential site, please reach out to the Homeless Coalition. It's very much needed in this community, and without a location, yeah, it would not be a good thing. So the other thing that we're looking at is we currently have ads out for an executive director right now. So that those ads have been out for a couple of weeks. If you're interested in applying to be the executive director of the Slave Lake Homeless Coalition, please apply at info@slhcs.ca. And that is everything. Thank you.
Questions? As I see none, Children's Resource Center, Steve's not here. MPC.
No update.
SDAB had a meeting actually last week. It was a small, straightforward one about some side yard setbacks and so on and so forth. Basically new construction, which was exciting. The variances exceeded the MPC by like 0.1% or something, so it had to go to the SDAB, which was a contentious issue from what I heard. But we did what you guys couldn't, and that project is progressing. Any questions? Waste meets
Later this week,
later this week. Airport.
later this month.
Legacy has not met, but quick update that things are going quite well there. We're actually, our bookings are up compared to budget. So that's looking positive. Operationally, we haven't had any real issues. Our big thing here behind the scenes is trying to get the space there. So the daycares condense their space. We have some space upstairs that is for rent. It's being advertised right now. And we're looking for a tenant that would love to make that beautiful center their home. And so if you're interested, please contact Remax, who's got it listed. The other one is we recently got a request for from Stage North there that want to make some changes to the lighting in there for some optimization. So we just got that one today, and the board will be discussing here. We're working on setting a meeting up. Any questions? Protective services. Rich Masters is me. Northern Alberta Mayors and Reeds Caucus hasn't met. Northern Alberta elected leaders. I did not make the last meeting, but I did send the minutes and information out to you guys. So with that, I would accept a motion to accept the committee updates as information. Moved by Councillor Brandel. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. So we'll jump into reports and new business on page 9 in our package. And first one is for creation of reserves.
All right, good evening, your worship and members of council. The purpose of tonight's report is to get council approval for the creation of 3 new reserves. During the 2022 budget, there was a proposition to allocate some of the surplus to a number of new reserves to be utilized. And so I'll just go through each one here. So the future expenditure reserve helps to mitigate unforeseen opportunities or costs that may arise throughout the year. Prudent financial planning would see the town create a fund to provide resources to take advantage of these opportunities or help offset any unforeseen costs. So the purpose of the reserve is to utilize annual surpluses to the long-term benefit of citizens of the town of Slave Lake, to fund unforeseen expenses or projects throughout the year. And funds here could also be used to offset any deficits the town may incur. For the funding model, an allocation from the unrestricted surplus and the consolidation with the town's tax stabilization reserve would initially fund this reserve. Future contributions to the reserve would be made annually from the town's operating surplus. Expenditure funding may be used for either operating or capital projects. Funds expended here should be for the purposes of funding one-time projects and not for ongoing annual expenses. To access the funds, a resolution approved by council or an allocation made through the approved operating or capital budget would guide how to use that. The next proposed reserve that we had is the disaster recovery reserve. So to be prepared for future disasters and their associated costs, funding should be set aside to lessen the burden on town's funds. So the purpose here is, in the name, is to fund disaster-related costs in the event there is a natural disaster or other type of disaster that has affected the town of Slave Lake. The town of Slave Lake will endeavor to keep an appropriate amount of funds available in this reserve to cover unforeseen costs in the event of a disaster-type event. The town will replenish this fund to an appropriate level in the following year or years after the funds have been withdrawn from the reserve to cover disaster costs through its annual operating budget. And to access these funds, a resolution by council would be required. And the final proposed reserve is the Technology and Infrastructure and Innovation Reserve. So the purpose here is to fund technology improvements in the town of Slave Lake that are either operational or capital in nature, to provide continual improvements to the technology and software available for the town to access to provide services to residents. Allowable operational projects should only include costs associated with the setup and implementation of new softwares or technologies. Ongoing costs should be covered on an annual basis through the town's operational budget. And the funding for this would be annual allocations through the town's operating budget, and use of funds would be required by council resolution.
Okay, jump into questions from council, comments. I'll just write a comment and say, Roland, appreciate you taking the time to do this. Obviously, this is something that we've had for a number of years. We've had this unrestricted surplus that kind of sits there, builds. What do we do with it? So in our budget discussions here this year, we made an effort to break out some of these pieces and make sure that as we move forward with unrestricted surpluses, that they go into certain reserves. So, having the future expenditure reserve is used to, deal with things that pop up out of the blue. It also gives us an opportunity to use it as some of the tax stabilization when doing budget. Technology was a thing that the council talked about very much during our budget deliberations, in the sense that, optimizing how we collect data, how do we use it, the systems that we use, and how we make it more efficient for our customers, as well as for our own staff, was a priority in there for sure. And then obviously, some changes to the Municipal Government Act, and basically the MGA, which is kind of our Bible on how we operate. There was a notification that basically came down from the province that said, in future disasters, you're on the hook for 10% of whatever it costs. So identifying reserve to be able to do that was key for future planning. So I appreciate the time you taking to do that. And I know the next report is a little bit of cleanup on that, but these are reports that are probably easy just to kind of glance over, and we all say, yeah, but it's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. So I just want to say thanks to the finance team, and specifically you, Roland, to make that happen. If there's no questions, comments, Councillor Brandel.
Jeff, do you want 3 motions for this or 1?
Yeah, I think 3 is good so that we
Okay.
have, yep.
I'll just make the first one then. Be it resolved that council approves the creation of the future expenditure reserve.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Next, Councillor Hughes.
Be resolved that council approves the creation of the disaster recovery reserve.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Lastly, Councillor Ward.
Be it resolved that council approves the creation of the Technology Infrastructure and Innovation Reserve.
Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. So now some amounts on those.
Right, so yeah, flipping over to the next report here is just taking what was in our unrestricted surplus and providing council with administration's recommendation on how to allocate the funds in the account. So the funding is laid out in the discussion. After all said and done, there will still be $100,000 left in the unrestricted surplus. But just going down the list, so the 3 new reserves we'll see funding as it is here. So $1.4 million to the future expenditure reserve, $200,000 to the disaster recovery reserve, and $300,000 to the technology infrastructure reserve. Then the other remaining funds here, taking a look at just what's coming up in each area. We have additional allocations. So $80,000 to the planning and development reserve to help fund the future plans that are required. $150,000 to the arena and pool capital reserve to also assist in the funding needs that are coming up in those areas. And then last but not least is $250,000 to the fire services capital reserve to aid them in their upcoming equipment needs and purchases. And the final one here too is the, so with the creation of the future expenditure reserve, administration is just recommending that the remaining balance in the tax stabilization reserve of $80,000 be taken from the tax stabilization reserve and just moved into the future expenditure reserve. As the future expenditure reserve is designed to basically act as the same thing with just a little bit broader parameters.
Sounds good. So the allocations are listed out there with the recommendations to council. Any questions, comments, discussion, motions? You're the only one who wants to play tonight, Councillor Randall. So well, this would by the looks of this, this would be 2 motions.
Okay. It should be noted that resolved was spelt wrong in the last one and as this one as well.
Oh. Paste.
The audio, though, we'll get it right. Let's go.
Be it resolved that council approves the allocation of the unrestricted surplus, which has had a balance of $2,485,589 as of December 31st, 2021, as follows: $1,405,589 to the future expenditures reserve, $200,000 to the disaster recovery reserve, $80,000 to the planning and development reserve, $300,000 to the technology infrastructure reserve, $150,000 to the arena and pool capital reserve, $250,000 to the fire services capital reserve.
Motion is on the floor. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That's carried. For a second motion, Councillor Ferguson.
Be it resolved that council approves the allocation of $80,000 from the tax stabilization reserve, which has a balance of $80,000 to the future expenditure reserve.
Motion on the floor. Any discussion? No? Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Summer, eh? Okay, thank you, Roland. Next report on page 15, our package. Downtown.
Good evening, your worship and members of council.
Good evening, Kush.
Good evening. The purpose of this report is to provide a recommendation to the council for extending the project scope to East Walkway opposite to Rennie Hall Plaza. Town administration presented an update report during a special meeting on May 17th this year. During that meeting, council requested a future report with cost estimate for extending the original project scope to the East Walkway for additional surface upgrade. So I have attached attachment 1, which shows the project estimate breakdown for individual plaza. And based on the current scenario, it looks like we will have enough funds to expand the scope from ATB all the way to the Rex Theater crosswalk. But having said that, administration is carrying 10% contingency on this whole project. So if the contingency amount remains unused, then we can go further up from Rex Theater crosswalk all the way to Fourth Ave Northeast. But that would have to be determined at a later stage. But at this point, we would like to get council's approval to at least include East Walkway as a part of this project scope.
Okay. Questions, comments from council? Councilor Ferguson.
Yes, when would we be looking at starting the East Walkway?
Sorry?
When would we be looking at commencing the East Walkway? And when would we anticipate a finishing date?
As soon as North and South Plaza are completed, we are hoping to complete those North and South as per original scope before all-in event, August all-in event. So as soon as that is wrapped up, then we can move on to the East Plaza.
In September.
Yes.
Okay. Other questions, comments? I have one. So, okay, so my understanding is that potentially, so we're only gonna go halfway up that block. So I understand the rationale there that essentially you're gonna try and, it'll match north and south linear across there.
Yeah.
But we're gonna have this division where basically when you're walking on one side of the sidewalk on the east side, all of a sudden it dramatically changes from one thing to the next, instead of doing the whole block of that side. Now, based on your comments you've made, it sounds like for $100,000, which would be approximately the 10% contingency, that we potentially could do that later. But I'm just thinking about the mobilization costs of demolition and doing that again or whatever else. Is it an option that for $100,000, we could just include this?
We can do that, yes. For $100,000. So we are at $1,033,000. So that's almost $70,000 short of our original, available budget. So if we have additional $100,000, I'm pretty sure we can finish up that additional portion of the walkway from Rex Theater to the Fourth Ave Northeast.
I just think it looks really silly if we do one section one way and we don't do it the other way. And then we go back later and try and do it again. That, realistically, why not just do it all at the same time? And then it's done and it flows potentially with the whole downtown feel that's going on.
Plus you get different product runs too, generally for
Yes.
the colored product. So I would be willing, I think it should be done all at once, because otherwise you could have something that looks a little bit different. Because again, they're all done in batches, right?
Yeah.
It's from what I understand, they're all
Yes,
done in
yes.
batches. So I'm with Tyler on this one. I think it makes.
Like
sense
either
to
we
allocate
don't
more
do it or
funding.
we're gonna do it. That's kind of where my head is at. That
I think,
Pick
I think the mismatch would be less appealing.
other questions, comments? Counselor Hughes.
So even if we add, say, this 100,000 and end up doing that whole strip, you're anticipating you guys would start doing that this fall
Yes.
On the east side.
on the east side?
So so on the west side there, their intention is to be done for the all-in event.
Before the all-in event.
Pause, do the all-in
Yes.
event, then do
Yeah.
the east side.
Okay, I think I would just have a bit of a concern that we would get into a similar situation where we're not finished in time for winter and we have a lot of things ripped up in front of some pretty major downtown businesses. And I'm very concerned that that also could happen with having a late start. Just wanting to voice that. I don't know the extent of the project, but just kind of curious on your thoughts on that.
Anything running under that? Is it just basically digging up and putting it back?
Just taking it out and putting it back.
Right,
There's
so
no
you're-
lighting
So-
infrastructure,
no.
there's no conduit, there's no
No,
nothing.
no.
we're not adding lighting on that side because we already got some lighting and stuff in there.
So we have EDCO lights there. We are upgrading those lights to a newer standard so that it is consistent with the other on the West Plaza.
Okay,
So that will be, yeah, we will do that with this expected scope of the project.
so is that going to require additional trenching?
No, it's just unbolting the existing lights and
So we-
bolting in the new lights.
So we demo, do the base prep,
Yes,
pour,
yes,
and change out some light pods.
yes.
We're not adding a bunch of architectural or anything there.
No,
So theoretically, you should be able to get it done.
yeah, we should be able to get it done because as per last year, we ran into issues with colder temperatures starting 5th of October and later. So technically, we have 4 weeks even if we start early September, hoping that we can wrap that up.
Okay,
Is that enough time?
yeah,
Is that enough time for the concrete to cure then before the cold weather?
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
yes.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to ask that question out loud and kind of get a bit more of an idea of what you'd be looking at, because I would hate to have us run into a situation where it's half finished for the entire winter season and it's a frustration for people on Main Street and the businesses down there as well. So, but, okay, thank you.
okay. So bigger question then, if we decide that we're going to do that. What's the communication? Like, how are those businesses going to be impacted for getting customers
So-
in and?
Yeah, we talked to the contractor. Most of the concrete pouring, they will try to schedule during the weekend.
Okay,
The prepping can happen during a weekday, but the pouring will actually happen on a weekend.
so there'd be minimal disruption. And
Yes.
and at any point, aside from when they pour on the weekend, would we be limiting traffic to those places? You have to think too, like on the weekend, that the theater, for example, that's when their prime time stuff is. So I guess the only thing I would say is that we work on that communication strong ahead of time so
Yeah.
that these guys, that these businesses along that eastern section have time to prepare and make adjustments to their own schedules, that we don't drop it a week ahead of time.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Other questions, comments? So I guess the question would be here now, if we actually did want to extend this. So, okay, so I'm gonna make a motion that says this. So I'm gonna make a motion, be it resolved that council directs administration to extend the project scope on the east walkway to encompass revitalization from Third Ave to, was it Fourth? Third Ave to Fourth Ave,
Northeast, yes.
northeast. And that $100,000 be allocated from future expenditures reserve. Take it out of road? Okay, so amended to be taken out of road and sidewalk reserve. Motion is on the floor. Any further discussion? Call the question, those in favor? That is carried. Okay,
Into the same district, yes. Okay, thank you.
thanks, Kush. Mr. Simpson, Voyant Alert. So we discussed this last week. I had a 2-hour presentation from them. I'll let you take it from there.
Correct, thank you. So this is just kind of the formal process in regards to the presentation and the adoption of the software. So Voyant Alerts is a software solution by Icesoft Technologies. It was presented to senior leadership team on the 29th of June and to council on July 4th. Essentially, Voight Alert can allow accurate, up-to-date information and relevant information about issues and incidents that impact the residents' daily lives be communicated instantly and effectively over multiple communication platforms. Administration and council continue to recognize the importance of timely and accurate and effective communication between the town and its residents. Although several communication channels are currently being utilized by administration, opportunities exist to improve on direct delivery methods while allowing residents the opportunity to select the various categories of information relevant and important to them to receive, reducing information overload. Administration is asking for a one-time budget reallocation of $13,000 originating from the newly created Technology, Infrastructure and Innovation Reserve. Future year budgets will be increased by $5,000 annually to cover software subscription and continuing onboarding efforts and activities. Communications policy relating to Voight alerts will be created and approved by the CAO prior to implementation. Administration is going to be developing a comprehensive onboarding strategy once authorized to include public engagement at various events over the remainder of 2022. Media campaigns on various platforms and information mail outs through existing town correspondence processes. So recommendation to council's administration is asking council to approve a total budget reallocation of $13,000 for the acquisition, implementation and public engagement and onboarding of Voight Alert for the town of Slave Lake.
Okay. Questions, comments from council? Okay, go ahead, Councilor Moreno.
I was just going to make a motion.
Go for it.
Just wanted to say that I was really excited about this. So the presentation was really good last week. So, and I also want to say thank you for getting this to us so quickly because I think we're all really excited about this one. So, motion that council approve administration to acquire and implement Voight Alert mass notification and communication tool for the town of Slave Lake with a total one-time budget reallocation of $13,000 coming from the Technology, Infrastructure and Innovation Reserve.
Okay, motion is on the floor. I'm just gonna throw out a few comments. So first off, council had a 2-hour presentation on this last week. And so the whole idea is that how do we continue to do an effective job and even increase our service level when it comes to communicating with our residents? And so essentially we did have an app that we had tried a number of years ago that had limited success. And this one we're intending to invest in a new app, a new software that basically will help us push notifications out to residents who want to be informed. So whether this be for an emergency piece, whether it be for road construction, whether it be for facility closures, things that are going on, there's just a lot of benefit to be able to make it easy for us to communicate with our residents. So one of the things that I will say, and I'm sure administration is already top of mind, but the biggest thing is that we have to have some kind of campaign when we roll this out to communicate to residents, get them to do buy-in. And so, Voight being able to share some of that data and, whether maybe it's through a video or slide presentation that we can share with the public to say, here's the benefits and this is what it would look like. But I will say that it looks very slick. It's very easy to use. And I think it will have a lot of benefit to our whole administration as we move forward. Even something as simple as snow removal on streets to say, hey, we're working in this area next week or this week or today or tomorrow or an hour from now. And be able to notify a mass of residents within a few seconds is going to be extremely beneficial for us. So with that, motion is on the floor. Any further discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That is carried. Mayor's Corner, I just want to say congrats to Dalton, Abdul and Callie there. East Shore Athletic Champions Gym and Callie's a big proponent there from Carlos there that did a bunch of work there towards the Alberta Powerlifting Provincial Championships, something new to Slave Lake that we've never seen before. Approximately 140 participants, brought 400 some people to town. Going on the MRC at a time when the facility is not high in use, it was great to see lots of people coming from out of town for it. Working at the restaurant there on the weekend too, it was interesting to see how many out of town faces. I keep asking where these people are coming from. And although a ton of people came for the fair and carnival, it felt like even more came for these powerlifting. And they were coming from like Calgary and Lethbridge and BC, Ontario, Northwest Territories. It was crazy. So And they were there for multiple days. And so some of them we saw multiple days again, and they came in again and just asked them how things are going. We're very impressed with Slave Lake and very impressed with the event that those guys threw on. And so for taking something new and making it happen, excellent job, guys. Additionally, it was Riverboat Days this past weekend. Carnival was set up. The Midway was set up over on Highway 88. Tons of traffic through there. Thanks to residents there that slowed down as we had a lot of pedestrian traffic going through there. Lots of enforcement from RCMP as well there to keep people driving slow, which was nice. But it just creates a whole nother vibe in town, and hats off to Chamber of Commerce for another successful event. Lots of questions about fireworks and what's going on there. And so I don't think, I'm dangerous to even ask. You know what? I'm not gonna. I know that we typically have done fireworks for Riverboat Days. I don't know if we're doing them for All In event. I know that in the past, Vanderwells has donated.
There will be fireworks for All In event on
Okay.
Saturday, August 27th.
Okay, thank you very much.
Spread it around. Put it in the paper, Joe.
Okay, fireworks are coming. Okay, thank you again to Vanderwells, because that's a significant donation to make that happen. With that, that's all I had for Mayor's Corner. Got a bunch of stuff going on behind the scenes. So let's dig into some of that. Motion to go into closed session. Thank you, Councillor Ward. Any discussion? Call the question. Those in favor? That